Hello and welcome back to the Wives Club. We're so happy to have you back here. I am Margaret. I am a patron of the late Mr. Kevin Samuels, and I'm so grateful when he was with us. I booked a session with Kevin to ask his permission to stand up a community of like-minded and marriage-minded women within the privacy of his Patreon group. And I am so grateful. Not only did Kevin give us permission, he came up with the name, the Wives Club. So we've got a catalog of work here on the community tab, but what we do here, we use Kevin's shows as inspiration to improve our outcome, talk about lessons learned, how we can get better as our way of giving back. So there are several other ladies in the Wives Club.
I'm a future wife from the Boston area. I'm channeling my inner Kevin today. I got that brand of glasses that he used to wear. I'm ready to go and to just kind of share my perspective from a future wife's experience.
Absolutely. And Lisa, can you introduce yourself?
I am a Patreon. I am a current wife, and I am happy to be back.
Wonderful. And Hermisha, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Hermisha, and I am a former wife, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, absolutely. And if I didn't say, I am a former wife in the Atlanta area. All right, so today we are going to do a response video to one of Kevin's latest videos before he unfortunately passed. This one is called The Self-Love of Modern Women, and it was originally released on May 2nd of 2022. So if you haven't taken a look, please go back and watch that video because we know Kevin's message still lives on. So in this video, if you did watch it, what you'll remember is that Kevin used some footage from Eartha Kitt in her later years, as well as Diane Carroll in her later years, in addition to having audience members call in like we know that he does. And what really struck me in this video was the segment that he posted with the interview with Diane Carroll. Now, we all remember Kevin got a lot of flack for ranking women, and whether we agree with it or not, we have to accept that is how men think. When they see a woman, they put her into different categories, and that's just something that we have to accept. So we all know about average at best, and I am, here to say I've always considered myself an average woman. But if you remember, when Kevin would give examples of the scale that he would use, 5s and 6 were average, like most of us. He didn't use 7. 8, he equated to someone like the modern day Beyonce. A 9, I believe, was someone like modern day Rihanna. And he struggled to give a modern day 10, even though a lot of women said, I'm a 10. If you remember, he had to go back to other generations, and he would often mention Diane Carroll, Dorothy Dandridge, if there was ever anyone that was close to a 10, because unfortunately, in current society, a lot of the ladies that you all know we see don't have that level of whatever it is, grace, sophistication, beauty, the total package. So I really perked up when he was playing this video, and I think it was an interview that Diane Carroll did before she passed with Oprah. I could be wrong. But there was a scene in that interview where she's being driven by, I'm sure, a chauffeur wherever she's going, because she was a woman with extreme beauty, and she was a woman that was very wealthy, but she was a woman that was alone. I think she had been married several times, and she was reflecting in her later years that she had to realize that the buck stopped with her, and she had to accept and acknowledge that the reason that she was dying alone is because she was difficult to deal with. And I thought that was a profound, admission of responsibility. Kevin always talked about accountability, and she said, this is my fault. She had many of suitors and many of opportunities, but whatever happened, we'll never know. But the lesson that shared with me, and Kevin actually said this in the interview, if someone like a Diane Carroll, who was closest to a 10 that we can refer back to, and someone that was actually wealthy in her own right, not the bad bee and boss babe that are, entrepreneurs. You all know we've talked about that here in the Wives Club too. But if a woman that is extremely beautiful and extremely wealthy can die alone, what are the chances for those of us who are of average looks and average income, but want to be difficult in dealing with a man? So we have to really put that into perspective, or I will use myself as an example. I always put that in perspective because if it can happen to her, there's nothing special about me. So in my decision making, you all know that, I was married for 10 years. And then since then, I've been in a long-term relationship for another 10 years. But anytime I think the grass may be greener or, I'm going to go out there, I realize, you know what? I'm just like everybody else. So I'm not that special. So I definitely love myself, but I also want to have that reality check because I know Diane Carroll. And I think that lesson and wisdom that she shared with us still carries on to this day. So that.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. And I so many good points in there, like especially with the whole Diane Carroll thing. I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that when we are single, it can happen to anybody. It really could, like if we don't take the way that we are intentional about mating, it can end not so good. I think a lot of us have had them relationships where it didn't really work out. And it's just like when we are intentional about what we want, the results can be very, very different. So a couple things here, like I loved that show. I think we started this by saying, when you watch these, you tend to miss Kevin so much when you watch his catalog. I miss all the jokes. I miss hearing his voice, like all of those things. But for self-love, when it came to modern women, he did mention that modern women fall in love with themselves. And what does that mean? That means, you've built yourself up as a person, your journey, all of those things. It's almost like the hero's journey where you go through something and you're so excited about what you've built yourself up to be. But I think what happens, and I'm a victim of this because there weren't a lot of women in my life that taught me how to prepare myself to share that with someone else, and when you do meet somebody and you're both in a really good place, like that's an adjustment. You have to take your life and merge it together with this person's life, right? So it's not about you anymore. I really think that's what Kevin was saying in this particular episode, right? Like you want somebody to share the experience that you've had, which is fine. And it's not a partnership, but it's more of a merge. And, depending on the type of man that you end up with, sometimes he's going to be the primary breadwinner. Sometimes he's going to have more needs than you have, right? So it's also about that flexibility and being able to come together. That's one thing I wish that my aunts and my mom and other women in my life taught me. Women, you four or the three of you have taught me so much, right? So from a future wife perspective and just the other women out there that want to be married, this is something that I'm learning right now. And I wish I knew 5 to 10 years ago, right? You have to prepare yourself for that. And I think Kevin talked about it. So, you can get the guy, but the question becomes, can you keep him, right? We see that with so many women out there right now. You're looking at stuff that Sierra's doing. It's a little questionable, right? And she got her guy, but the question becomes, can you keep him, right? And the world is watching. So no shade at Sierra, but just, I remember just going through this as a millennial woman trying to date in this time. And Kevin's content has really changed my life. And I hope you guys that are watching in my situation, sometimes you got to get the answers in other places. So that's what I have for this week. I'm really excited about it, but I miss Kevin so much. I got my diptyque candles out. Like, I miss this man. I really do.
And I know, what a loss, gone too soon. I miss him as well. I miss the soundboard. I miss everything. So, but he left us a wealth of content, and his message lives on. Lisa, I'm going to come to you. What was your takeaway from the Self-Love of Modern Women episode?
Oh my God. So I grew up watching these two ladies, Eartha Kitt and Diane Carroll. And I was really shocked to hear Diane Carroll say what she said, but I thought she was very honest and frank about it. And it's hard for a lot of people to do, because I have people in my life like her, who, the best way I can put it is that the women in my life have shown me how not to be, how I don't want to be, and how I do want to be, and stuff like that. And so I guess what I saw in Diane Carroll is someone who could come, almost like a grandma figure, saying, you know what, I messed up. And it was good to hear that, because we don't get a lot of that nowadays, saying, this is where I messed up, had these 4 marriages. And then also the flip side of it was watching Eartha Kitt. And I gotta say, I've got some Eartha Kitts that I've seen examples of too. And I just thought, this is like crazy, just in her own delusion and all that. And I'm like, no, I know what I don't want to do. So it was really hard to watch. And I was a big fan of Eartha Kitt when I was a kid. I used to love singing her song, Santa Baby and all that. But it was just the delusion that she had. And then to hear Kevin's breakdown of it, which I thought was excellent. And the one thing I will say about that show is I felt when he started talking to the other ladies, and the ladies start calling in after he did his monologue and gave those examples, I don't really feel like any of, for the most part, none of them really picked up what he was putting down. And hopefully they would later if they rewatch it or talk to someone about it, like we usually say, let it kind of sit in with you. But hopefully they will. But I don't think they were getting it. So, but I did think it was his first part of the show. The call-in, I didn't feel so great about. I didn't think they got it. But yeah, I do miss Kevin so much. And I thought that was a great episode for the educational part. And I love when he gives us metaphors and examples, like, look at these two ladies. I know you know them if you don't. And I think he even talked about Grace Jones too. A lot of people were, they didn't even know Grace Jones, and they were just talking down on her. And like, Grace Jones was such an icon for like me, an 80s kid. Grace Jones, Eartha Kitt, and Diane Carroll. So I thought they were great examples, because I love metaphors, and I thought I just missed the heck out of Kevin, man. So he's like an extra dad, in my opinion, but I do miss him. And I thought those were great examples, and I hope everybody got some wealth of information from it, because I did, and it was just great. So I really enjoyed that one.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yes, you're right. And that's true. We can learn what to do and what not to do if we keep our eyes open and watch our surroundings. But Hermisha, I'm going to come to you. What was your takeaway from the Self-Love of Modern Women episode?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just echo everything you guys are saying, especially missing Kevin and hearing that intro. I was like, oh, I missed the song. But nonetheless, he brought up some amazing examples for a lot of us as modern women in this society to see and really learn and glean from. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was with Eartha Kitt, with how she talked about love in a romanticizing way that we often as women tend to sort of romanticize, and this sort of Disney type of love. You're just chilling in a cloud, and it's just all fine and dandy. And listen, I am a hopeless romantic. I love all of that. Give me the fluffy, cheesy, mushy gushy. Okay. But at the same time, there is different types of love that we also have to understand. But the first point I wanted to make was her comment about falling in love. And she was very expressive about that when he played the video. But then she juxtaposed it with the comment that, what is there to compromise if I'm in love? If I'm on this cloud and I'm floating? And Kevin was looking at the video like, I just cannot believe those words came out of her mouth. And I was sitting there watching it too. Because I do think that even though that was shot years ago, that we tend to have that mindset today as women, that it's floating on a cloud and that's how it is, and there should not be any compromise. And that's where we go wrong. Where, as many of you mentioned, and AV mentioned, that you can get a man, but can you keep him? And part of keeping him is, do you have a heart disposition of humility? Because compromise takes humility. It takes a laying down of your will to trust the man who's leading you to say yes, basically, right? Because when you can say yes to that, then there's a surrendering of like, I trust you. I really want to go to get those French fries, but you know what? We can go ahead and get a salad tonight. Yes, baby. I love a good French fry. But you know what? I want to keep this body tight for you, baby. So I want to pop it back. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Speaking of popping, if I may, and on the lines of keeping a man, and our very talented sister, Sierra, we know she knows how to pop it. And I remember Sierra in undergrad, and she had this particular song. She was dancing on the car, and I would mimic those songs, those dance moves, and I did it. I learned how to pop from Sierra. However, that was 20 years ago. And when you have a husband or when you have a man, the point I want to make is we can sort of revel in all of that. And that's good. She's in amazing shape and we want to keep our bodies up and take care of ourselves. Yes. But when you're with someone and you're married, pop it for your man. You don't have to pop it in the streets. Pop it. Do get that pop down for him. But don't be popping it for everybody. Okay. And so that's the thing I wanted to really highlight on that. And again, under the umbrella of keeping a man, under the umbrella of femininity, under the umbrella of compromise, under the umbrella of carrying yourself in every context as a woman who's grounded, who's secure, who knows her worth, who knows and trusts the men she's with, and she willfully says yes. And she pops the phone and she keeps it right. But that's all I got to say about that. So I just want to encourage the women out there, however, again, to, relationships are about compromise. And it's not that you don't have an opinion, but that it's a laying down of your will. And it's also a sort of, you're not so rooted and rigid, that there's flexibility. And let me tell you, ladies, there's growth and flexibility. And that's another type of love. That's agape love, where we love unconditionally. And we can say, you know what, I really want that. And maybe we can talk about that next week, but you know what? Yes, baby, let's just do that. That's fine. That's agape love. And that's the love that sustains you. The eros love and the romanticizing love is wonderful. But sustainability of any relationship, you need that agape love as well. And the eros, you got to cultivate the eros too. But you can't just be living on eros if you're not showing agape. Does that make sense? That's what I have today.
It makes complete sense, and so much good connective tissue, if you will, with what we talked about. The title was called Self-Love. Hermisha, you talked about the different kinds of love. When I think about love, to me, love equals sacrifice. We've all shared here that we're mothers, and how many times have we said, because of the love of for our children, we've all made, sacrifice. When I think about Sierra and Russell Wilson, sometimes you just can't do everything you want to do, even if you're known for getting down on the floor and doing that. Think about your husband, or if I were Sierra, which I am not, I would be thinking about, what does the world now think of my husband because I'm out here doing that? In that moment, it's not just about me. You represent somebody, right? And then, like you said, so happy that we have this space, because not only are we helping the community, but we're helping ourselves, and a lot of us, some of us did, some of us didn't, but it just always brings me back to when I booked that session with Kevin, the conviction that I had. He would always ask, what are the older women or the women with experience doing to help those who don't have it? So I'm just so grateful, and it's so filling every time we get here because you all know in the Wives Club, and Kevin said this, and I believe whether you're currently married, want to be married, or used to be married, being a wife is a mindset. So we're here to promote that and everything that comes along with it. So before we close out,
no, I just love what Hermisha said. I'm thinking about one of Kevin's episodes where there was a woman that was like, yes, yes. I'm so excited about that. Yes. Say yes, ladies. Say yes.
Absolutely, you're right, because we all know when you meet that man that's worth it, that yes comes so quickly. You do not want to not be ready for that moment. Lisa, any final thoughts from you before we close out?
No, y'all, as y'all can see, I'm in the hospital, but I was determined to do the show. I'm getting my blood pressure done, but I truly miss Kevin, and I thought it was a great show with all those wonderful examples that I love. So I hope everybody got some great information from it, and I hope to be back to discuss more of his catalog of work, because we're doing the work.
Absolutely, we are doing the work here. And Hermisha, anything else before we close out?
You know, such a wealth of information he left us, and really the theme of this being a mindset. You can't submit, you can't compromise, you can't even put on femininity unless you have the right mindset, because it comes from you. So I just want to encourage the ladies out there, if you like to pop it out there, hey, that's quite all right. But at the same time, when you end up in relationships, you have to, there's a different mindset. So start cultivating that now. All right, thank you.
Absolutely. We are committed to doing that work. And you're right. Keep it popping, but keep it popping in private, because you don't want to be Diane Carroll alone. Whatever joy in the moment that you have for getting that burst of attention, think about, what did Kevin always used to say? What do you want life to look like when you're 60? So keep that in mind. So we're here to do the work. Until the next time, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you back on the Wives Club. Bye, everyone.